Okay. So Laura, I'm going to mute you too. And then we're going to take a slight detour from what I'd initially thought we were going to do, but that's okay. That's okay. Let's go ahead and grab our blanket roll or our blanket first. And we're going to make a blanket roll. So we'll start with our blanket folded like this, which is about a quarter of its normal length. And then we're going to take the tail end side and we're going to neatly and compactly roll it all the way to the other end until you have a little taco. Well, that's not a taco, a burrito or a Tootsie Roll or something like this. And then once you have that blanket roll like this, you are going to lay down and your head is going to go on your blanket. So you'll most likely put your blanket roll towards the top of your space and you'll just go ahead and lie down on your back. And the first thing that you want to do is when you find yourself on your back, if your hair is in a bun or something like that, you're going to probably want to let your hair go just so that the occipital bones, so those two bones at the back of your skull, can rest on your blanket. And once you find yourself here, so it's the occipital bones, those two bones at the back of your skull, they're on the blanket. And then you can just let the arms open out to the right and to the left. Your legs can be bent or your legs can be straight. Totally just depends on you. I feel like for me, it felt better to have them bent, but you try both and see what works for you. And then I want you to just take a couple of breaths here and just notice what you notice, first of all, of the pressure coming into the back of your skull. And then notice what that does to your shoulder blades, where the back of the shoulders just connect into the floor. And then notice what you notice about happening or what's happening in the back of the pelvis. And if the soles of the feet are on the floor, notice the feet. Now, some of you will just choose to stay right here, happy as a clam, still as can be. Some of you will very slowly, and by slowly, I mean super duper slowly, just roll your head a little to the right. And then you'll inhale and slowly come back through center, and then exhale and slowly go to the left. With the blanket at the back of our occipitals, and with us moving very slowly, we're sort of doing a little bit of myofascial release, as well as something that, back in the day was Feldenkrais. It was super fun, but in Feldenkrais world, you moved so slow that nobody could even see that you were moving. And you would pay attention to the small, tiny muscles down the spine that were being activated and or released as a response of this movement. And we'll just take maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 more breaths. And you're just allowing yourself to slowly move a little bit from right through center to left through center. And you're just noticing what's happening around the neck and the shoulders and maybe the breath as you continue to do this. And once you feel like you are complete, meaning you're even between your right side and even between your left side, you'll find yourself back in center and you'll just take a breath cycle there. Now, if your legs are straight, let's go ahead and bend our knees and plant our feet on the floor. And I want you to just gently push into your feet. And you'll feel that you can slowly start to rock your pelvis. And by slowly curling your tailbone towards your knees and then arching it away, you'll notice that with the blanket underneath your head, that's giving a different part of pressure or maybe release that's happening in the back of your skull now. And you're just going to take 3 or 4 of these. And they're slow. Again, nobody may see anything that you're doing. Once you've done 3 or 4, you'll go ahead and relax and come back to stillness. From here, we're going to roll over to one of our sides. And once you find yourself on your side, you'll go ahead and push into the top hand, press yourself up to sit, and then you're going to slide your blanket a little further down so it's a little closer towards your pelvis. And then you're going to lie back down. Now, this time we want to see if we can draw the blanket right underneath our armpit. It's not a fun spot. You're not going to like this. I'm sorry. but it's underneath your armpit. The top arm is, or the front arm is on, the bottom arm is in front of the blanket. And then you can just allow your chest to roll over the blanket. And you'll notice that, especially if you have mammary glands or mammaries there, breast tissue, you'll want to be mindful to not impact that. So if it's in the armpit, it feels great. You can roll a little forward and back, and you'll find the backs of the shoulders. Your head can just drip towards the floor if that feels good to you. If you want to hold your head up, that's fine. That's just a little bit more activation in the back of the neck. We're just trying to open things up a little bit. Awesome sauce. Well, very gently, we'll come to stillness. You'll see if you can push into the top hand, slide your blanket a little further down. So maybe now it's more underneath your ribs. Your bottom arm slides in front of your blanket. And again, you'll find a different part of the body, the rib cage on the blanket, and you'll just roll a little forward and back. And again, you're just paying attention. So we're just trying to loosen up some of the muscles in the back, along the back chain of the body before we start to ask it to do stuff. And we're just allowing ourselves to pay attention to what's happening. So the theme that I've been working with this week that I find very interesting is, we all take our own time. We all have our own pace. Our natural unfolding happens at different points in times for each of us. Go ahead and pause, push into the top hand. We're going to go ahead and then roll our blanket back to the top and roll over to your other side. So now you've got the opposite arm down. The blanket is underneath your happy little armpit. And then you can roll a little forward and you can roll a little back. And you're just paying attention as you're getting some of those latissimus muscles underneath your chest. And you're feeling into what you feel. And it can be big, it can be small. You're just paying attention to what that pressure of the blanket feels like underneath your rib cage. And then go ahead and come to stillness. Press into your top hand, come up, and then slide the blanket a little closer towards your hips. And then once again, go back down into a new spot. And you might just stay still. There's nothing that says you have to move. It's just finding a little bit of release in the body in a way that feels good to you. All right, and then maybe you roll forward and back, maybe you don't. But in either case, we're going to give ourselves permission to just be exactly as we are and just trusting in our own process. So the thing I've been thinking about is how, we know that nothing in nature is rushed, but everything takes or gets taken care of, or everything happens. I think it's a quote by Lao Tzu that I butchered there a little bit. But in essence, how do we allow ourselves to remember the same thing about ourselves? So some things that we're doing may take a little bit more time, or some things that we're doing might be super quick. And in either case, it's totally fine as long as we're allowing ourselves to tune into our natural rhythm of things and honor that natural rhythm. All right, let's go ahead and come to stillness. We're going to now go ahead and push up, and you're going to slide that blanket now so it's probably closer to where your back would be, and you'll lay down on your back. And the first thing that you'll find is just see if you can bring that blanket into the small of your back. And for some of you, this will be like, oh, God, that doesn't feel so good. And so we'll just notice what that feels like. If you want to move the blanket down a little bit, go ahead and do that. You want to find the spot where it feels like the blanket is supporting the natural curves of your low back. And you'll just take a couple of breath cycles there. Some of you will keep your legs bent. Some of you might play with extending your legs long and just noticing what your spine feels like if you can find that natural lordotic curve in your lumbar spine. Awesome. And then we're going to go ahead and move on. So if your legs are straight, go ahead and bend your knees, plant your feet on the floor. And now go ahead and slide that blanket so it's underneath your sacrum. So it's not in the lower lordotic curve. It's not where the spine wants to curve. It's really underneath that triangular base of the spine as though you had an elf on a shelf. And now here, I want you to go to rock the pelvis forward and back. So finding pelvic nutation. And again, you're going to notice what's happening in your neck. You're going to notice what's happening in your breath. And especially those of you that mentioned that you had a lot of low back discomfort, really pay attention to how these last two shapes have impacted the rest of your spine. Awesome sauce. And then from here, we'll go ahead and find ourselves into neutral, find ourselves into stillness. And you'll just take 3 or 4 breaths here, really allowing the PSIS, so posterior superior spine, to just push down, or iliac spine, push down into the blanket. Feel the length that's happening across the front of your pelvis. As you're ready, you'll engage the backs of the legs, push into the feet, lift your hips, remove that blanket, and then just bring your pelvis all the way down to the mat. From there, go ahead and extend the legs long if you'd like, and just take a moment to notice what that feels like. If you notice anything different happening in the spine here and now. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Let's bend our knees, plant our feet firmly on the floor. Grab your strap, and let's put the strap across the ball of our right foot, and then send our right foot up towards the sky. And for today, we're going to keep the left knee bent just for a bit. Because a few of you mentioned your low back, we're going to just focus on what's happening in the hamstring first. So I want you to really lift up through that heel. Yep. Lift up through that right heel. Pull the right toes down towards your face. And some of you will just stay right here. This is a happy place to stay, just working to find the push. So you're really kicking your right heel up. You're pulling your hands down towards you while you press your right thigh away from you. Some of you will be happy as a clam to stay right here. Some of you might want to extend the left leg long in opposition and feel what that feels like. But again, the impetus, or the emphasis rather, is on paying attention to what's happening in that right leg. Great. And some of you will stay right here. Some of you will start to externally rotate your right thigh. So now your right heel will spin in, your right toes will point towards your right shoulder, and you'll find a different sensation happening across the back of your right leg. And again, you're paying attention to what's happening here. Are you breathing? Fantastic. Go ahead and internally rotate the right leg now. So now your right toes are pointing towards your left shoulder. Your right heel is spinning out. Some of you will draw both ends of that strap into your left hand. You'll pull your right thumb to your right hip crease. Now you'll push your right thigh away from you as you draw your right thigh over to your left a little bit. And you're flexing through that heel. You're pushing out through your right heel. You're pulling your toes down towards your face, and you're breathing. Your right butt cheek stays glued to the mat, and we're just finding the outside edge of our IT band, the backs of our calves. If you have been noticing any discomfort, just notice if you can breathe. Next in breath, let's go ahead and come back through center. If your left leg is straight, bend your left knee, put the foot on the floor. Now from here, let your left leg flop to the left, externally rotate the right leg again, and let the right leg open to the right in opposition. And see if you can keep that right leg straight. Notice what's happening on the inner edges, the adductors of both of your thighs, and just pause and you breathe, and you pause and breathe. And the right leg can go as far as you want because you got the strap to help you. You're kicking out through the right heel. Next in breath, go ahead and come back through center, left foot to the floor, right foot to the sky. As you exhale, release your strap. And then I want you to just take a couple of points and flex of that right foot, or maybe some ankle circles, but just notice what you notice happening here. And then once you feel balanced between the sides, slower than you want to, you're going to slowly extend that right leg forward into the floor with control, seeing what happens in the opposite hip as you do so. Once the right leg finally touches the floor, I want you to then extend the left leg long to meet it. And then just notice if you notice anything between your right side and your left side. And you'll just pause and you'll breathe. Nice. All right, let's try the other side. Bend both knees, plant both feet on the floor. And then again, draw the left knee into the chest, draw the strap across the ball of your left foot, and send the left foot towards the sky. And same thing as we did before, we'll start with the right knee bent as we focus on really activating the left leg. So the left heel reaches up, the left toes draw down, the left thigh presses away as you pull in with both ends of the strap. And then if you're happy as a clam, happy to stay here. Otherwise, you might extend your right leg long on the floor beneath you and just notice what that feels like for you. And I didn't mention on the first side, and I do apologize for the oversight, but make sure your right leg is as active, as engaged as that left. And some of you will stay right here. Some of you will externally rotate the left thigh from the top of the hip. So now your left heel points in, your left toes point out, and you just notice what's happening in the back of your left leg as you keep reaching up through that heel. Fantastic. On your next in breath, we'll internally rotate that left leg. You might draw both ends of the strap into your right hand as you draw the left hand to the left hip crease, and you'll push your left hip away from you as you draw your left leg a few inches over to your right. Now, as the leg goes to the right, your left sit bone, PSIS stays glued, PIIS stays glued to the floor as well. And so you're just noticing what's happening. So PSIS, posterior superior iliac spine, PIIS, posterior inferior iliac spine. And you're just pausing and you're breathing. All right, next in breath, go ahead and come back through center. If the right leg is straight, bend the knee, plant the foot on the floor, let the right leg flop to the right as the left leg reaches out to the left. Maybe drawing the left, there we go, strap into the left hand to make that easier for you. And you just pause and you breathe. You're flexing through the left foot, noticing what's happening on the inner edges of your thighs. Nice job. Next in breath, go ahead and come back through center. As you exhale, plant both feet, or rather, your right foot on the floor, left foot is up, and you'll release the strap. And then go ahead and circle or point and flex that left foot, whatever feels appropriate to you, whatever you did on the first side. Awesome. And then once you feel balanced, very slowly lower that left leg all the way to the floor. Once both legs, or rather, once your left leg is straight, extend the right leg long to meet it. And again, just check in. Nice control there, Barbara. And see what you notice. All right. Nice job. All right, from here, let's go ahead and bend both knees, plant both feet on the floor. And this one we're going to try to use as a diagnostic tool. So let's not use our hands if possible. Cross your right ankle over the top of your left thigh. Really actively flex through that right foot. Now you're going to start to draw your left knee towards your chest, and you're going to resist it with your right ankle. Now we're going to pretend that you're playing tug of war. So you'll do this about 5 times. So one time you'll come up, you'll push with that left knee, and then you'll push away with the right ankle. And you'll do that 4 more times. And you're just noticing if you can get the legs closer to your chest and then legs further away. And you're noticing what's happening here, whether you can get a little deeper each time or whether you don't, that's okay. Awesome. And then the next time you come up, we'll just stay there. And some of you will pause and you'll just really actively press your right ankle into the top of your left thigh. Some of you will choose to thread your hands through the hole and grab the back of your thigh or your front of your shin. But again, we want to keep that right leg active. We want to keep both sit bones glued to the floor. And you're just going to pause and you're going to breathe. Nice work. And then as you're ready, we'll gently release the clasp, draw the left foot back to the floor, release the right foot next to it. Take a moment to notice what you notice between the sides. And then we'll try that on the other side. So cross the left ankle over the top of the right thigh, actively flex through the foot. And then again, draw your right knee towards your chest. And then push your right thigh away from you. And you just got 4 more of those. So that coming in and out. And we're not using the hands for the first one. We're really trying to activate the fronts of our hip flexors. And then we're trying to activate our external hip rotators. And so you're just noticing what this feels like. Do, 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 do. And then we'll do one more. And then the next time your legs come towards your chest, we'll stay there. Some of you will just stay without the hands. Some of you will thread your hands through the hole, grab the back of the thigh, front of your shin, and you'll just pause and breathe here for a couple of breath cycles. And you'll just notice what you notice. How's the breath? How's the body? How are you? More importantly, are you allowing yourselves to luxuriate in the shape, to take the time it takes for your body to respond to the messages that we're attempting to send, and for the messages of the body to come up and be interpreted by the brain? Awesome. As you're ready, gently release. Draw your feet to the floor. Separate your feet a little wider than your hips. And then very slowly open the arms out to a T shape and let your legs fall from right to left. And again, you're just paying attention to how this feels as you slowly windshield wiper your thighs. What are you noticing in your pelvis? What are you noticing in your back? And once you feel balance between the sides, find yourself back into center. Great. All right. Let's go ahead and walk our feet together. And then I want you to open your knees as wide as they'll go, keeping the soles of your feet on the floor. So we did this last week. So soles of the feet, big toe edges stay on the floor. And your arms can be wherever the heck you want them to be. You're going to push through your feet and lift your hips to a bridge pose. So Steve, bring the soles of the feet to the floor. Soles of the feet and knees just widen. Yep. And then from there, you're going to slowly draw your legs together. And you're going to go slower than you want to. You're going to imagine that for some reason, I'm going to make you count to 100, and you're going to draw your legs together. And then once you get to the top, you're going to squeeze your knees together. You're going to squeeze the backs of your glutes, and you'll suddenly feel that this bridge is a lot harder than normal. And then once your knees finally touch, you're going to lower your butt back down. So those of you that missed last week did a lot of hip work. This is a strengthening exercise for our glutes, especially those of us that are having low back issues. This is probably going to be great for us. So once your butt touches again, you'll open your knees about, I don't know, as wide as they'll go, as long as the soles of the feet stay glued. Then push down through your feet. You'll lift your hips and slowly, and that means not fast, slowly draw your legs towards each other. And the slower that you go, the more muscle strength and stability and hip stability, especially for those of us with low back and knee and hip stuff. This is really good for us. Haha, yay! And then when you get to the top, you'll squeeze and you'll hold your knees together for 3. Make sure you press on both sides there, Steve, for 2. And then slowly lower your butt down for 1. You've got a total of 5 of these at your own pace. And so ideally, we don't want to go fast. So that you open the knees, the soles of the feet stay glued to the floor. And then you push down through the feet. You lift your hips. Once your hips are high, you slowly draw your legs together. Slowly, slowly, slowly. There you go, Roberta. Make sure both sides are coming at the same pace. Yep. Both sides, both sides, both sides. Yep, 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 yep. And you pause and you hold at the top for a couple of breaths. And then you put your butt down. And you open your knees and you try again. Awesome. All right, we'll do 2 more. Do, 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 do. There you go, Julie. Make sure both work at the same rate. Julie, slow down, Julie, slow down, Julie. There you go, there you go, there you go. Slow down, there you go. Yep, fantastic. Hold it. Yep, great, great, great. Make sure you're breathing. And then slowly lower down. So ideally, you're trying to notice whether or not this feels different than a normal bridge. The normal answer should be yes. And maybe I didn't cue it right. So that's possible that it's not. So that's okay. This will be our last one. Do, 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 do. Last one, soles of the feet down. Slowly draw the knees together. Once the knees touch, press them in. Yep. Yep. And then slowly bring your pelvis all the way back down. When your pelvis touches this time, go ahead and separate your feet hip distance apart, normal orientation, and just notice what it feels like to take a couple of pelvic nutations here. Ideally, we should have felt the backs of our glutes or hamstrings engage in a way that maybe we don't normally feel when we're in a normal bridge. And then the drawing in, hopefully we felt our adductors, the inner edges of our thighs start to warm up. All right. Let's go ahead and bring ourselves into a neutral position. We got 2 more things to do before we can move on. Draw your knees into your chest. Draw the hands inside the thighs. Grab the outer edges of the feet. Draw the soles of the feet together and push, or rather pull your feet towards your face as you think of lengthening your knees away from you. Now, some of you will stay right here happy as a clam. Some of you might want to try some little hip hiking. So it'll feel like you draw your right hip closer to your right shoulder and your left hip goes away. And then you'll try it on the other side. So left hip comes closer to your left shoulder, your right hip goes away. It feels like you're just sort of rocking your sacrum up and down your spine a little bit. And it feels kind of nice. But also, like, if you're like, I don't know what's going on, that's okay as well. We're going up and down versus right to left. And then once you feel like you're pretty balanced between the sides and you've got some elongation in your waist, you'll come to stillness. And then draw your knees towards your outer armpits, your feet towards the floor, and take a couple of breaths here in Ananda Balasana, Happy Baby. And you just pause and you breathe and you notice what's happening perhaps along the inner edges of your thighs, what's happening in the back of the sacrum, what's happening in your shoulders, and you just pause and you breathe and you pause and you breathe. And notice if your weight is tipping to one hip more than the other, or if it's pretty balanced between the sides. Great. From here, let's go ahead and draw our knees back towards each other. Release your feet to the floor, and then bring your hands alongside your hips. Now make sure there's nothing touching you because that will feel not so good. And then separate your feet about hip distance apart. From here, let's push down into our feet, push down into our arms, lift your hips for bridge pose, Setu Bandha Sarvangasana. Once you are up, you might choose to wrap your shoulder blades a little underneath you so that you can push on the upper outer arm bone and then push down into your arms, straight arms, push down into your feet. And just notice if this feels a little bit different than the earlier bridge. Notice the relationship between your chin to your chest, and then see if you can take in a deeper breath. As you're ready, you'll untuck your shoulders, you'll bring your pelvis back down to the floor, and you'll just take a moment to pause and you'll take a moment to breathe. Nice work. Let's go ahead and extend our right arm alongside our ears, roll over to your right side, continue to roll all the way up to sit, or rather to hands and knees. Once you find yourself in hands and knees, you'll want to move your blocks to the top corners of your space. And you'll also want to make sure that, like, if you want to pad your knees, so you unroll that blanket if that feels appropriate for you. Great. And then once we find ourselves in our hands and knees position, we're going to find just our little sad non-California cows for a moment. And I want you to just notice what it feels like to really just let your belly drop and your head drop. And you can maybe shift a little bit right to left if that feels good to you, or just stay completely still. And you'll just take 2 or 3 breath cycles here, finding that elongation through the spine. And then at the end of this next exhalation, start to scoop all of your organs away from the floor. Drop your chin to your chest, drop your crown to the head or to the floor, and round through your spine into a cat pose. And then inhale, draw the organs down to the floor, the chest through the gates of the arms, the gaze forward, the ears up. Awesome. And you'll just do that a few more times. So start with scooping the organs first, rounding the chin to the chest, dropping the tail, dropping the crown, pushing wide through your arms, or rather through your shoulder blades. And then inhale, belly drops, chest comes forward, gazeless. And you'll do 2 more on your own. And you just pause and you breathe. And you notice what that feels like to really start from the viscera, the core of your body, as you come in and out of the shape. It might feel different. It might have a different quality. It might have a different result or impact. And you just notice what that feels like for you. I think when we can tune into our core, we can start to tune into the essence of who we are just a little bit more. Awesome. After this next exhalation, you'll find yourself in an inhale and into a neutral spine. Great. From here, let's take our left hand. We're going to slide our left hand underneath us to the right for a little twist. And then you're going to come right out of that as you inhale. We're going to do about 4 of these. So you exhale and you thread the arm underneath you towards the right. You inhale and you come back up. And again, we want to move slowly. We're moving with resistance, as though we're moving through mud in order to start to activate some of the muscle fibers of the body. Awesome. And this should be our 4th one. And so once you're down here now, we're going to stay and you're going to pause and you're going to breathe. And if you want to reposition your right hand, by all means, do that. If you'd like to push down into your left arm, by all means, do that. If you want to scoop your chin to your chest just a little bit, do that. But you're just pausing and you're breathing. And you're noticing what you notice. And on your next in breath, you're going to return back to hands and knees. And then we'll try that on the other side. So again, we're sliding our left hand underneath us. So we're moving through mud. So we're moving with resistance so that it gives our body the opportunity to really engage. It also gives our mind the opportunity to slow down, gives our breath the opportunity to sync up with the movements. We're exhaling as we're going to the left. This one should be our fourth one. And then you just pause there and you'll breathe and you'll just notice what you notice. Sometimes it feels like if we take small repetitions before we hold something, it gives us the capacity to explore it in a deeper way. And I think that the same thing is true with different things that we work through in life. You know, sometimes we have to do little trial runs and see how it goes, or maybe we have to repeat things a number of times before we feel more competent at doing them. All right, next in breath, go ahead and come back through center. And then this time we're going to walk our hands forward about one hand print and find Anahatasana. So you'll allow your ears to drip between the length of your arms. Maybe your chin comes to the floor, maybe the forehead comes to the floor, but you're just finding a lot of length across your back body. Fantastic. Take 2 more breath cycles here. And then as you're ready, you'll start to walk your hands back towards you. Go ahead and curl all sets of toes underneath you and sit for toe squat. If toe squat is not working for you today, no worries. And then today we're going to do a slight variation. So we'll draw our thumbs to our pinky fingers, wrap our fingers around our thumbs, bring your hands to the sides of your temples. And then as you exhale, the elbows hug towards each other. Maybe they touch. And as you inhale, you squeeze your shoulder blades on your back body and the elbows open. So you've just got about 5 to 10 of these, however many you wish to do while we're holding toe squat. And you're just pausing and you're breathing. And we're really hugging the elbows towards each other. You'll feel your pec muscles in the front engage. And then you hug your shoulder blades together on the back body and you'll feel your rhomboids engage. And you're just seeing what that feels. You might also feel your middle trapezius too, depending upon where you're squeezing. But, you know, do, 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 do. I don't think you should feel your upper trapezius, though. Mostly just the middle ones. Awesome. We'll do about 1 or 2 more. Do, do, do. All right. This will be our last one. And we'll go ahead and release. Go ahead and circle the shoulders if you'd like. You can also interlace the hands behind your low back and send your arms away from you if that feels good to you. And we'll take our last 2 breath cycles here. And you just pause and you breathe. Awesome sauce. And then when you're ready, let's go ahead and come forward, hands and knees. Pitter patter the tops of your toes onto the mat, or maybe take a counter stretch if you'd like. Great. And then last thing, we'll grab both of our blocks. We'll separate our blocks enough for your hands. You're going to grab your blanket roll again, and we want to make sure it's still neatly and compact. We know where we're going with this, most likely. Crown of the head is going to come to the floor. Blanket roll is going to tuck behind the backs of our knees. We have not done this in a long time. A lot of you may not enjoy this. That's okay. Our blocks are here, and we know what's going on. And so when you get there again, you might stay still. You might rock a little bit right to left, feeling what's happening in the backs of our calves, backs of our hamstrings. And again, you might stay still, you might shift. And again, once you feel complete with that, you'll pause. You'll take a quarter turn of that blanket roll, drawing it a little further back so it's closer to your heels. And again, you might stay still. You might shift a little right to left. You might do none of the above, but you're just pausing and you're breathing. Great. And then last time, come to stillness, take that quarter turn, draw the blanket to the tops, I guess the backs of your Achilles, tops of the ankles, and you just, again, maybe shift a little right to left. Maybe you stay completely still. Maybe you point your toes towards your bum and then release them, and that gives you a different sensation. Awesome stuff. And then when we're complete with that, we're going to move our blocks back to the upper corners of our mat, take our blanket roll out. Now we're going to find ourselves back into a downward facing dog. So this is our first down dog of the day. And you'll notice, well, I want you to notice what you notice. How do the backs of your legs feel? Do you want to bend one knee slowly and then the other? Can you press your hands down and forward as you do this? And just notice what you're happening to experience in the back of the spine, the backs of the legs, what's happening in your breath. Awesome. All right. On your next in breath, let's take our right foot between our hands. Now, once your right foot comes forward, wow, good job. Bring your hands to your blocks. And I want you to just pulse a little forward and back. So you're reaching back through your left heel, you're reaching forward through your right knee, and you're just noticing what this feels like. Hopefully, you can lift your pelvis a little bit and feel a nice stretch happening across the front of your left thigh. Great. Once you feel established through that, come to stillness. Plant your left hand underneath your left shoulder, your right hand to the outside edge of your right thigh. Push down into your left hand. Reach your spine towards the top of your space, and then start to scoop the belly on the right side as you roll your ribs to the right. Some of you will stay happy as a clam here. Some of you will reach up through your right arm. Now, check in with your left butt cheek. Make sure it's still engaged. Make sure your left thigh is still lifting. And then make sure you're breathing. Nice work. Next in breath, right hand comes back down to the floor. Step your right foot back to plank pose and just notice what that feels like. Ooh, fantastic. We just pause and we breathe and we pause and we breathe. And then when you're ready, go back to your downward facing dog. Again, notice, do you need to shift your pelvis a little bit? Do you need to bend and straighten one knee? What's happening with your shoulders and your neck? What's happening with your breath? Awesome. Go ahead and step your left foot between your hands. Nice job. Hands come to your blocks. Nice work. And again, you shift forward and back, and you just notice what this feels like. We did do some stuff, but this might be a different engagement, especially as you engage the muscles around your right leg. That's the back leg, hugging muscle to bone, seeing if that changes your sensations. And then when you feel complete, we'll go ahead and come to stillness. Make sure your right hand is underneath your right shoulder. Left hand comes to the outside edge of your left hip. Push down into your right hand, reach your sternum forward, scoop the belly on the left side, and you'll start to roll your ribs towards your right, to your left. And then you might stay here. You might reach up through your left arm, engage your right butt cheek. That's the back leg, really hugging all the muscles to the bone. Heart opens, deepen your breath. Nice work. Next in breath, left hand comes back. Step yourself back to plank pose. Awesome sauce. So hands on mat ideally. Take a deep inhale here. Your choice, you might lower the knees down, or you might just lower all the way down into plank. Onto your abdomen. Once you find yourself on your belly, go ahead and inhale and pull your heart forward and through, little baby cobra. And we're going to pause here for a little bit. I want you to pay attention to your belly. See if you can draw your pubic bone forward to your navel. And notice what that feels like. And then draw your shoulder blades onto your back body. Reach your sternum forward and lift up through your crown. Now, if you'd like, you're going to lift your legs. So you'll reach so far back through your toes that your legs hover. And now you're in this locust pose. If you'd like, you'll hover your hands away from the floor. Some of you will slide your hands back just an inch. You'll push down into your hands. You'll push down into your arms, straightening your elbows, lifting your pelvis, and coming into your upward facing dog. And you'll just pause and you'll breathe and you'll notice what that feels like. Nice work. As you're ready, you'll curl your toes under back to plank and then back to downward facing dog. And you just pause and you breathe and you notice what you notice. How's the breath? How's the body? How are you? Great. Let's add on. Inhale, sweep your right leg up and back. Pause. What does the stretch feel like across the front of your lifted leg and the back of your supporting leg? Some of you will stay here. Some of you will bend that top knee, open and stack that top hip, and notice what that feels like. And again, are you pushing down through the opposite hand? Nice work. On your next exhale, draw your right knee to your nose, plant the right foot between your hands. Nice job. Great. Now from here again, we're going to root down into our front foot, engage the muscles of our back leg, and then draw your hands to your hips. Yeah, look at how much stability we already have. Now keep pushing down into the heel of your right foot to bring your spine up to vertical. Once you find yourself in vertical, I want you to think of drawing your outer left hip forward as your left heel reaches back. And then notice if you can lift your chest and sternum. Now, some of you will stay right here, happy as a clam. Some of you might want to release your arms up and overhead and take Ashtha Chandrasana, high crescent lunge. And again, we're just pausing and we're breathing. We're noticing what this feels like. Nice work. On your next exhale, hands come back to the floor. Step your right foot back to plank. Take a moment to pause here. Now, here's where we're going to add on. You can do a push-up if you'd like. You can lower your knees down first if you'd like, or lower all the way down. So maybe push-up, maybe not. And then we'll find ourselves on our belly. Nice. Once we find ourselves on the belly again, we're going to pull our heart and sternum forward. Draw your shoulders onto your back body. Bring your awareness back to your pubic bone. Draw your pubic bone forward to your navel. And then again, re-engage the shoulder blades on your back. See if you can lift through the crown of your head. Now, lengthen back through your toes and then lift your legs up and away from the floor. You might choose to stay right here. You might hover the hands, slide the hands back an inch, and then push down into the arms, straightening the arms, finding yourself in your upward facing dog. Only the tops of the feet are on the floor if you're doing that, and the hands. Nice work. When you're ready, you'll come through a plank pose. You curl those toes under and then go back to downward facing dog. And then just 3 breaths. And you notice what you notice. How's the breath? How's the body? How are you? Nice work. Next in-breath, sweep your left leg up and back. Pause. Just notice how that feels. As you're ready, you might stay here. You might bend that top knee. You might open and stack the hip. And again, you're just paying attention. Are you rushing yourself through the shape to get to the next shape, or are you moving on when it feels like you are complete, when the body is telling you, yes, go forward? Awesome. When you're ready, you'll draw the left knee between your arms and put the left foot on the floor. Cool. Before we go further, make sure you're stable in your feet. So you'll push into the outer left heel. You'll reach back through the right heel. You'll bring your hands to your hips and then push down into your feet, drawing them towards each other in order to bring your spine up to vertical. And then once you're there, fantastic. You might just choose to stay here. Happy place to be. Drawing that outer right hip forward as you reach back through the right heel. You might choose to release the hands and then extend the arms up and overhead for Ashtha Chandrasana. But again, it doesn't really matter. As long as you're breathing where you are, you're committed to being in the experience that you are having. Nice work. On your next exhale, hands come down to the floor. Slight variation. You're going to step forward this time. So now the right foot and the left foot are at the top of your space. Ideally, they're about hip distance apart. And now you might choose to stay in stillness here and just push down into your feet. You might want to rock a little bit. You might choose to bend one knee or the other, but just paying attention to what feels like it's sending you a clear signal. And sometimes it's hard to know what our clear signals are because we're getting so much noise from the outside world. And so we have to choose to, slow down a little bit so we can distinguish signal from noise. If you're in movement, go ahead and come to stillness. Let's bring our hands to the shins or the blocks or the floor. And then you'll inhale and you'll halfway lift. Now, as you're here, we're going to exhale and bend our knees to about a 90-degree angle. Sweep your hands back for little airplane arms and then inhale and bring your spine up to vertical. Now, once you find yourself here, you might be like, yeah, Jessica, I'm going to bring my hands to my hips. And you can do that. And you can then lift your chest, and that's fantastic. You might keep your hands here or you might reach your arms forward, and we'll sit a little bit for 3. We'll sit a little bit lower for 2. We'll sit a little bit lower for 1. Next in breath, push through your feet. You'll stand up. You'll reach up. You might look up. And then as you exhale, you'll allow the arms to soften back down to your hips. You'll close the gaze or soften the gaze and just take a moment to just check in and notice what it feels like to be in the body, what it feels like to have your breath moving through you at this point. Awesome. All right, let's go ahead and open our eyes. For this one, I am going to encourage you to keep your hands on your hips, just because it'll help with our next transition. So we're going to keep our hands on our hips. We're going to shift our weight to the right leg and float our left leg up. Now, we're going to externally rotate our left thigh and see where we can plant our left foot without the use of our hands. Once you find where that lands, you might use one end or both hands to reposition that foot to a place that feels good to you. And then we want to think of this. You're pushing your right knee down, you're pushing your left knee down, and that somehow creates this magic section into the midline. And you just pause and you breathe. And again, hands might stay at your hips. You might choose to flower them and grow your tree. I'm not really so concerned with what's going on in the upper body today. I'm really concerned with how we're stabilizing in our pelvis, how we're stabilizing through the legs. Nice work. And then when you're ready, you'll gently release. So left leg comes back to neutral. Go ahead and release the foot to the floor. If you need to shake things out, shake things out. If you want to wiggle them out, wiggle them out. And then we'll try the other side. So again, hands start on our hips. We shift the weight to the left. We float the right leg up. And then you're going to externally rotate that thigh and then plant the foot wherever it happens to land. And then you'll be like, oh, that's not where I want it. And then maybe you could retry and readjust. And our trick for today is really think of drawing both knees down to the floor. It draws the energetic line of muscle engagement into the midline, and then it magically creates some form of stability. And then, maybe you keep your hands on your hips. Maybe you decide to flower your tree. Not so really concerned with that, but just noticing what's happening in your legs. So left knee down, right knee down, noticing how that engages on the midline. Awesome. All right. If your hands are anywhere other than your hips, let's bring them back to the hips. Let's draw our right leg back to neutral and release the foot down to the floor. All right. So at this point, we're going to make sure that we've got our blocks towards the upper corners of our space. And we're going to see how this transition goes. So, I'm going to start with our left leg. So let's shift our weight over to our right leg, float our left leg up so it's parallel-ish to the floor. Now, I am not going to lie, this is not going to be fun. We're going to bend into our right leg. You're going to send your chest forward as you start to kick your left leg back. And you'll hover for a second in a warrior 3 before you bend your right knee even more and plant your left foot onto the floor for your high crescent lunge. Nice. Once you find yourself in your high crescent lunge, we're going to keep our hands on our hips for today. This is going to be fun. As you keep your hands on your hips for a moment, you're going to spin your back foot down and find yourself in warrior 2. And then notice if you need to spin or walk your back foot back just a little bit. And notice if you want to change where your front foot is in alignment in relationship to that. Once you've got your feet where you want them to be, then we can go ahead and flower out through our arms. So arms extended parallel to the floor. Great. Next, in breath, turn your right palm to face the sky. Lower your left hand to touch the top of your left thigh or maybe your calf, and you'll take a reverse warrior and you just pause and you breathe. Nice work. Next, in breath, come through warrior 2. As you exhale, lower your right forearm to the top of your right thigh, or maybe your hand comes to the block or the floor, and then your left arm goes alongside your ears. Pause and breathe. Nice work. We're going to do that one more time. Inhale, find your reverse warrior. Take a breath cycle here. Just notice what that feels like. And then when you're ready, you'll inhale and come back through warrior 2. And exhale back into extended side angle. And then you take a complete breath cycle. Now you can do that 1 or 2 more times on your own. It depends upon how fast you're breathing on how long you wish to stay in each shape. So you might take a complete breath cycle. You might not. You might take two complete breath cycles. You might not. But I'm going to give you another, I don't know, two breath cycles to figure out what you're doing. And then when you are complete with whatever you happen to have been doing, we'll all meet back in Warrior Two. Awesome sauce. So from Warrior Two, we'll bring our hands to our hips. Let's go ahead and straighten our front leg long. From here, you're going to wiggle walk your back foot in just a smidge. And with our foot coming in, we've really shortened our stance. And with our hands on our hips, we're going to really tilt our pelvis back. And so you can really feel like you're lifting your hips and sliding them to your back foot. And then you can lower your right hand down to the floor and or block. And you'll find yourself in Utthita Trikonasana. And then we just pause here for a couple of breaths. We push down into our feet. We lengthen our tailbone down. We draw our right ribs under, our left ribs up. Some of you might want to reach up through your left arm and find a nice extended triangle pose. Nice work. Happy to stay here. If you'd like, you're going to draw your top hand. So that's your left hand back to your left hip. You're going to turn your gaze to the floor. That's your right foot. You're going to bend your right knee. You're going to slide your hand and or block forward and outside of your right foot. Push down into your right foot. Lift your left leg parallel-ish to the floor for half moon pose. And you might stay here with your left hand on your left hip. You might lift your left arm up towards the sky. And again, we just pause and we breathe and we pause and we breathe. Those in extended or Ardha Chandrasana, you're going to draw your left hand to the block or floor underneath you. You'll square your hips to the floor. You'll bend your left leg and plant your left foot towards the top of your space. If you remained in triangle, you'll turn to face the top of your space. You'll come to a low lunge and you'll step your back foot to meet your front foot. Now we'll all meet for a moment in Uttanasana, forward fold, and you just pause and you breathe and you notice what you notice between your right side. You notice what you notice between your left side. Great. And then when you're ready, let's go ahead and inhale, halfway lift, Ardha Uttanasana. This time, let's bring both of our hands to our hips. Take a big breath in here. As you exhale, you'll bend your knees to about a 90-degree angle. And then inhale, bring your spine up to sit for Utkatasana. Again, hands can stay right here on your hips. You might reach your arms back like a little airplane, or you might reach your arms forward, and we'll sit for 3. We'll sit for 2. We'll sit for 1. Next in-breath, stand up, reach up, maybe look up. And then exhale, allow the hands to soften down to the sides. Close the eyes or soften the gaze and just take a moment to check in and see where you are. All right. When you're ready, you'll go ahead and open the eyes once again. And we're going to try all that on the other side. So we're going to shift our weight into, I guess now our left leg. Go ahead and float your right leg up parallel-ish to the floor. And then we're going to try that hovering. So we're going to shift our weight forward, start to kick our right leg back as we come into that hovering Warrior Three pose. And that's our transition, because then we'll bend into our left leg, lower our right toes down, and find ourselves up into our high crescent lunge. Nice work. All right. And then once we feel like we're established there, you're going to spin your back foot to the floor. That's the right foot. And then open yourself for Virabhadrasana 2. Again, notice if you want to adjust your feet. So maybe the right foot goes back a little bit, maybe the left foot adjusts for width. Once you feel like you've got your feet where you want them to be for your pelvis, you can go ahead and open the arms out. Nice work. And then just as we did before, flip your left palm to face the sky. You'll inhale, lower the right hand to the shin or calf and take reverse warrior. And you take a complete breath cycle here. So that's an inhale and an exhale. On your next inhalation, come back through Warrior Two. And then as you exhale, left Forearm comes to top of left thigh, or maybe hand comes to block or floor as the right arm extends alongside your ears. And again, a complete breath cycle. And inhale, come back through warrior two. Come into your Viparita Virabhadrasana. Complete breath cycle. Inhaling through warrior two, and then exhaling into extended side angle. And again, a complete breath cycle. Now, just as we did before, you can do that 1 to 2 more times. It depends upon how many breath cycles you wish to take when you're in reverse warrior, or how many breath cycles you wish to take in extended side angle. But in either case, you're giving yourself permission to take the time that your body is telling you you need. Sometimes the body tells us, hey, I can go a little faster. Sometimes it says, hey, I need to slow down. And we're just honoring that. And then once you feel complete with whatever the heck you happen to have been doing, you'll find yourself back into warrior two. Nice work. From warrior two, let's go ahead and straighten our front leg long, throw our hands to our hips, wiggle walk your back foot in. And so it comes in quite a bit. And then with your hands on your hips, just go ahead and sort of lift and slide your pelvis back towards your back foot. And then you can lower that top arm. So in this instance, that would be our left arm to a block or floor underneath you. And again, you can pause and you can breathe and maybe just roll your left ribs under, right ribs up. Maybe you extend up through your right arm. Maybe not, but you just pause and you breathe. And happy to stay here. Great place to be. Otherwise, you might draw your top hand. So that's the right hand to the right hip. You might bend your left knee, slide your left hand end or block forward, shift your weight forward, float to your back leg. That's the right leg parallel to the floor. And you kick out through that right leg. You push down through the left leg. Maybe you roll your chest open. Maybe you float your right arm up and you pause and you breathe. When you're ready to come out, you'll draw the right hand to the floor or block underneath you. You'll square your hips to the floor. Then you'll go ahead and bend the right knee and step the right foot to meet the left, standing forward fold at the top of your space. If you're in Utthita Trikonasana, you'll come through a low lunge and then step to the top of your space. And then you just pause and you breathe. Nice work. From here, let's go ahead and inhale, halfway lift. And then as you exhale, bend your knees, plant your palms, step yourself back to downward facing dog. And you'll just take 3 breath cycles here. If you want to slowly bend the knees, great. If you want to slowly shift your pelvis, great. If you want to be completely still, great. It does not matter. It matters that you're honoring whatever your body is telling you to do in this moment. And then from here, some of you are just going to lower, actually, all of us are just going to lower our knees to the mat. And this is where the some of you comes in. Some of you might want to choose to put that blanket roll on the tops of your thighs. And then you're going to fold over your blanket roll. You might bring a block underneath your forehead if it feels like the floor is too far away from you, or just let your forehead touch the top of your space. So the blanket is in front of us and it creates a little bit of compression on the belly. And then we roll over it. There we go. And it's not comfortable. I'm not going to lie. I think it's quite nice, but it's not comfortable. And you just take a couple of breath cycles there and you notice what you notice. And then when you feel like you're complete with that, you're going to slowly come up and out of this shape. And then our last little efforting shape. Let's bring our forearms down to the mat so we can get rid of that blanket. I love that, Laura. Toss. We're going to bring our forearms down to the blanket or onto the mat, sorry. And you can interlace your hands or take the prayer, but we want to make sure our elbows are slightly inside of our shoulders. And then you're going to round through your spine like happy Halloween cats, quite a bit. And now I'm not going to lie, this one we're going to require quite a bit of effort from us. And I want us to pay attention to how that feels. So once you've rounded your spine, curl your toes, lift your hips. And with our elbows slightly inside of our shoulders, it's going to get a different part of our muscles in our spine. And then you lift your hips as high as they'll go, and you take a couple of breath cycles there. And you push down into your forearms. You push down into your forearms. You let your head drop towards the floor. So, Barbara, yours don't need to come in just quite so much. Your elbows don't need to come in quite so much. They can open just a little bit. There you go. Oh, no, that's a little too much. There we go. There we go. And it's a different sensation than our normal dolphin. And then once you've felt this for a little bit, you're going to go ahead and come down. My teacher calls this a headstand primer. And it really engages different muscles. And then you'll notice if you want to go into child's pose, if you just want to sit up, you'll just take whatever repose feels appropriate to you. From here, let's go ahead and make our way back onto our bellies and then make our way onto our backs. Now we are getting ready to cool down. So if your space is cold or your body gets cold, great time to cover yourself with socks or shirts or sweaters. Great time to make sure that your blanket is somewhere nearby, as well as your props like blocks or pillows. And actually, before you guys lay down, let's have you sit back up real quick, actually. Let's take our blanket. And again, because of our back people, we're going to start with our blanket like this. This time we're going to roll it the long ways. So I like to take the side that's not finished and roll it towards the finished side, but you can do it either way. And then the tail is going to go to the top of your space, and this flat edge is going to go towards the back of your space. And you're going to lay down where the back of your pelvis touches the back of your blanket, and then the blanket is in alignment with your spine. Now, for me, I like to personally keep my legs either bent or straight. Some of you might choose to do Supta Baddha Konasana and have the blocks underneath your legs, or maybe not. But you choose what's going to work best for you. And you're going to take a couple of breaths here, feeling the blanket on your spine. One of the things that I learned this week from Gina P, I can't pronounce her last name, so I'm just going to call her Gina P. She had us do this weird undulation of the spine. And so let's go ahead and open your arms out into a T shape. And with that blanket underneath your spine, you're going to imagine, well, not really imagine, you're going to activate energy from your right shoulder blade through your right hand, and then maybe you'll look to the right. And then you'll activate energy from your left shoulder blade through your left hand, and then maybe you'll look to the left. So it feels like you're doing a tug of war with seaweed or something, but it's originating from the shoulder. Then it goes to the hand, and then your head goes along because your spine is just undulating. And it just feels nice because it's giving your back the opportunity to sort of just melt into the support of the blanket. And if you've done that a number of times and you're done, great. If you want to continue doing that for a couple more breaths, great. But you're just going to take maybe 4 or 5 more breath cycles here, either in movement or in stillness. And then when you feel complete, you might choose to stay exactly as you are for your final resting pose. If there's something else that feels like it might be great for you, by all means, please explore that. And then those of you that are still in movement, by all means, continue exploring whatever you're doing. Those of you that are making your way to your final resting pose, I encourage you to make sure you're comfortable. And so if that means you need to wrap the body, wrap the body. If that means you need to fidget a little bit, fidget a little bit, but make sure you're completely comfortable. And then we're going to complete our practice today by bringing our awareness to the breath. And so I want you to just notice what you notice. Where is the breath most active for you? Do you notice it perhaps entering and exiting the nostrils? Do you notice the breath lifting the upper collarbones? Is it really present in the widening of the rib cage? Do you notice it in the back, between the shoulder blades and the heart? Do you notice the breath in the diaphragm? So it's at the base of the, I guess, joined ribs, where the floating ribs, I guess, sort of start. Or do you notice the breath in the abdomen? Maybe even into the pelvic floor. Wherever you notice the breath most active for you, just allow your awareness to rest in that spot. Whenever you notice that your attention has drifted to anything else other than the breath, so it might be a thought, might be a sensation, might be a noise in the environment. Whenever you notice that the awareness, that your attention has drifted from the breath, simply recognize that and then return to your breath. I will leave you here with you and your breath for the next few moments, and I'll let you know when it's time to come out. Return your awareness to your breath. As you come back to your breath, just take a moment to check in. Notice if there's any part of you longing to linger in this shape, and if so, please stay here. When you are ready, you'll gently allow movement to re-enter into your physical form in whatever way feels good to you. Very gently, you'll make your way to one of your sides, and you'll just pause there for a couple of breath cycles. From your side, you'll roll yourself up to a tall, comfortable seat. Maybe press would be a better verb there, but when you are upright, I do encourage you to sit on something, whether it's a block or a blanket. And then go ahead and take the opportunity to sit well. So if you need to remove any flesh from underneath your sit bones, do that. And then you'll plant the hands wherever is comfortable for you so that the gates of your heart, or rather the heart, can come through the gates of your arms. And then you just take a couple of breaths. I want you to just notice what you notice. Our ability to be present in any given moment is always our strongest point. It's the strongest place for us. It's the place where we have the most capacity. And it seems that in our current world, that stillness, that awareness is always being tested or challenged. And so as you're here for these last few moments, these last few breaths, I'd like to take this as an opportunity to remind ourselves that just as we were able to cultivate our presence, our awareness, our stillness in this last hour or so, we can do that off the mat as well. We just have to remember that some things will be a little bit slower, some things will be a little bit faster, but honoring the natural pace of things will allow that presence to come forth, to be utilized in its best possible way. We'll go ahead and complete our practice with a collective breath, followed by a collective Om. Guide your hands to heart center Anjali Mudra. Really press the palms into each other. Receive the weight of your thumbs into your sternum and then lift the sternum into the thumbs. Soften the breath and let all of the breath go through the mouth. Take a big breath in through the nose. Audible exhale. Inhale for Om. Join if you'd like. Draw your thumbs to your third eye. May your thoughts be clear. Draw your thumbs to your lips. May our words be kind. And draw your thumbs to your heart center. May our hearts be open. The light, the breath, the awareness within me honors and salutes the light, the breath, the awareness within each of you. Namaste.